morning, Carly and Todd. ICE Chief Todd Lyons is one of the leaders appearing before the House Homeland Security Committee today, and he will likely face questions about immigration enforcement in Minnesota. The fallout from that operation reverberating on Capitol Hill, where Republicans and Democrats are in a stalemate over DHS funding. Democrats have 10 demands to, as they say, rein in ICE. It includes targeted enforcement, no masks for immigration agents, and requiring DHS officers to provide ID. Democratic leadership say they received a Republican counterproposal yesterday. They called it, quote, both incomplete and insufficient in terms of addressing the concerns Americans have about ICE's lawless conduct. Democrats await additional detail and text. Republicans, though, say Democrats are the ones being unreasonable.
If Democrats are serious about finding a solution here, they may need to find more time to bring these efforts to a productive conclusion.
So the funding deadline is this Friday. That was a Democrat demand. They didn't want to fund TSA. They didn't want to fund Secret Service. They don't want to fund FEMA. They don't want to fund any of those if they can also cut off funding to ICE.
Separately, the Trump administration is celebrating a legal win for now after a federal appeals court in San Francisco granted a stay allowing the government to move forward with ending temporary protected status for immigrants from Nepal, Honduras, and Nicaragua. Attorney General Pambandi saying, as the court found, the government is likely to prevail in its argument that ending temporary protected status for some immigrants is sound and lawful policy. DHS has argued TPS protections were always intended to be temporary.
Ghislaine Maxwell, the associate of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, pleading the fifth to lawmakers on Monday as part of the House Oversight Committee's investigation into the Epstein files. It comes amid a new report from the Miami Herald referencing a 2019 FBI interview with the ex-chief of Palm Beach Police that says Donald Trump told them about Epstein and Maxwell back in 2006, saying, quote, "Thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this," going on to call Maxwell, quote, evil.
Whistleblower. Okay. I got a very simple, very elegant, very elegant in its simplicity, Jerry. I like that. The good meme. Yes, Donald Trump is the whistleblower. Yes, it has been proven. Now, time and time again, it doesn't come as a shock to this program. It came as a shock to the rest of the normies out there. But if you've been listening to our show, The Benny Show, then you know exactly who Epstein was and who Donald Trump was in his relation to him. You know exactly what the actual truth of the architecture of Jeffrey Epstein's schemes, how they tried to ensnare and entrap Donald Trump, and how President Trump was arguably the only billionaire, the only famous person, the only celebrity or superstar that actually did something. Jeffrey Epstein, now it's proven. Now it's proven in the documents. So we are hyped for today's show. Today's show will be a blockbuster show. You will be able to see inside of the unredacted Epstein files. We've been covering them. There are millions and millions of documents, photos, images, many of them redacted. But a member of Congress will be joining our show today live. Anna Paulina Luna, you know her, you love her. She has been a warrior on behalf of truth. And she has seen the unredacted files and has some major news to break today on the show. We'll also be joined by Chairman Jim Jordan and Representative Brandon Gill, Congressman Brandon Gill, young rising star for the Republicans. It is going to be a banger of a program, ladies and gentlemen, as new unsealed court docs show that President Trump is the undisputed hero of the Epstein saga. It is now in black and white, and we're going to shove it in everyone's face. Congressman pushes to vote on the Save America Act. It's going to be very, very big news. Today is Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Mizzen in Maine. I can't believe this. But there's sometimes, we have a growing show here. We have a show that is, I think, growing a great deal and we're so proud of it, and we're so humbled by God's grace in this moment to have just sort of worked through so many different cancellations and algorithmic collapses and so many different news cycles that have been tough to weather. And here we are, standing with you, and we are so proud of it. And most of the time when I'm standing, I'm actually wearing a Mizzen in Maine pair of slacks. When I'm out in public, I'm actually wearing these slacks. I love this brand. And this is our first time partnering with them. So it's awesome to just see the growth of the program into the kind of, brands that I already naturally and regularly use. And we never endorse anything that we don't actually live by. But this one's fun because my wife doesn't want me dressing like a slob. And Mizzen in Maine is one of those brands that makes sure that you look like a put-together adult as a man. It's just a great classic menswear company. Performance fabrics that look sharp and great and don't wrinkle. This is why I went and shopped there years ago. I started shopping there years ago. It's because I travel all the time, throw my bag together, throw my pants together, throw my shirt in there, and then I gotta go. And you're gonna be all wrinkly. Everyone knows of this team. I fly by the seat of my pants. I don't like traveling a day ahead of time to things. I like getting it done, getting back to my family. Dude, it's so awesome. This brand is so awesome. Their shirts and pants look refined, stretchy, lightweight, moisture wicking, wrinkle resistant, perfect for a man on the go. So anyway, it's just awesome for us to be partnering with people who run this veteran-led organization. Mizzen in Maine is a veteran-led organization committed to supporting those who served. They offer year-round military discount and proudly give back to veterans their timeless style you can enjoy for years, and I certainly do. Okay, enough gushing over this. It's just fun to be partnering with people who like we always do, that we truly support their mission and their product. Right now, Mizzen Maine is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase. MizzenInMaine.com, promo code Benny20. Mizzen in Maine, M-I-Z-Z-E-N, and Maine.com, promo code Benny, 20% off. If you'd rather shop in person, you can go to their select retail stores, like I do. All right, jumping in here. Goodness gracious, what an unbelievable turn of events. If you've been following our show, and if you have been tuning in, you will be wiser than I think 99% of the people who ever follow these stories. And that is because the Benny Show does this research. And we have a great team of researchers and producers here. And our research has showed time and time again that President Trump was the undisputed hero of the Epstein saga. Now, I don't like the way that these files have been redacted and produced. I'm going to separate that. I'm going to separate the DOJ's actions on this versus the way President Trump engaged with Epstein, because the entire op here, the reason why Trump calls it a hoax, is that Democrats have tried to smear him as a predator or a pedophile. And if you go back into the earliest possible days of President Trump's political life, you will find that it was actually Donald Trump telling us about Epstein crimes way before anybody even knew who Epstein was. When Epstein was a free man walking the earth. We've played these clips a million times, but I'm going to show you again, and then I'm going to show you a document that proves exactly what we have been saying time and time again. Here we go. Donald Trump, 2015. He had just announced he's running for president. The first thing he says about Bill Clinton is what? Here we go.
Bill Clinton.
Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein. A lot of problems.
So why, wait a second. So if President Trump's so guilty, Jeffrey Epstein, if he's in league with him and is there committing criminal acts with him, why is he standing on stage in front of millions of people being like, Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Clinton, they're filthy, dirty dogs? And then Trump continued, by the way. Remember the photo of Prince Andrew on all fours? Prince Andrew doing settlements with the victims? All the sick things that you can see, the photos you have of Prince Andrew now. President Trump, this is 10 years ago. This is more than 10 years ago. 2015, walks out and says, it's not only Clinton, it's also Prince Andrew. Here we go.
You raised the question of Jeffrey Epstein in your remarks about in the Q&A.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I mean,
what do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it. The island was an absolute cesspool.
So why would Trump tell on himself? Like, again, it defies all logic. And one other thing, if they had photos of Trump in hot tubs like they have with Clinton, they had photos of Trump on all four, leering over the victims like they have with Prince Andrew, then why would they keep it? Why would they keep it hidden? Of course they would have released these. The deep state and the Bidens and the Obamas have been in control of this for the last decade. They wouldn't have released this. Instead, they opt to shoot Trump in the head and raid Mar-a-Lago and try and run court cases against him and release the Access Hollywood tape instead of just releasing the footage of Trump on Epstein Island, allegedly. No, of course not. If they had something on Trump, they would have beat him about the head with it. They would have put him in jail. You know that. It defies all logic and defies all human nature that Trump would be talking about it if he was one of the criminals. Mike Johnson comes out and has a little bit of a slip of the tongue saying, no, dude, you don't get it. Trump was the FBI informant putting Jeffrey Epstein away. Here we go.
He's not saying that what Epstein did is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down. The president knows and has great sympathy for the women who have suffered these unspeakable harms. It's detestable to him. He and I have spoken about this as recently as 24 hours ago.
And now this. Check out the document. Here you go. Boom. Boom. Shakalaka in black and white. In case you needed any further evidence. The police chief investigating Epstein says Trump told him, thank goodness you're stopping Epstein. Trump said everyone knows that he's been doing this. Trump was the whistleblower. Mike Johnson says Trump was working with the FBI to put Epstein away. Palm Beach chief of police, who investigated Epstein in the mid-2000s, said that he received a call from President Trump to rat out Epstein. You can see it in the files right here in this FBI interview account now released. The Miami Herald was the first to report on the document. President Trump has repeatedly denied knowledge of Epstein's crimes, said he cut off contact with Epstein 20 years ago. We brought on Rudy Giuliani and others to say that they literally witnessed this. Trump rounding up all Epstein's junk, throwing it in the lawn of Mar-a-Lago, throwing him out of his clubs. Ladies and gentlemen, now we have it in black and white. President Trump threw out Jeffrey Epstein from his club. This is directly from the report. Trump called the Palm Beach Police Department to tell him, thank goodness you're stopping him. Everybody knows he's been doing this. Trump's working with the lawyer of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. And the lawyer says he's the only guy who called me back. The only guy who's working with me. The call took place in 2006, around the time that the Bush administration was going to let Jeffrey Epstein skate. Robert Mueller, head of the FBI. What a mess. Ladies and gentlemen, Anna Paulina Luna is locked and loaded and ready to go. She has been observing this saga and has been one of the warrior champion fighters for truth in the Epstein side. And she's just returned from viewing the unredacted Epstein files, and she has some shocking revelations for us. Anna Paulina Luna, live now. A little glitch there, APL. You know, whenever we're gonna go in hard on the communists or the deep state, there's always like a teeny glitch. It's like, oh, that happens. That always tends to happen.
It's weird how that happens.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, so it's weird how all of this is happening. Your revelations this morning are now breaking the internet, and I just want to tee you up here. You say that some of the unredacted names are women, and that there is now a op to cover the crimes by claiming that you yourself were a victim, even though you were assisting in human trafficking with Jeffrey Epstein. We're going to put your tweets up on the screen, and please, the floor is yours. What have you uncovered here?
Yeah, so I actually went in with a number of members of Congress. I'm actually going to be heading back today. I went in yesterday, and I spent some time looking at some of the most widely circulated emails. As you know, some of these emails, and I have my notes actually right here, had included, ages 10 and 11.
Yeah.
There was that famous redacted email referencing Snow White, the little girl is naughty, all of these things. So I actually went through. And what I found, to my surprise, as well as other members of Congress, to include Democrats, saw some of these were coming from women. Now, the reason for the redactions that we're being told is that these are alleged victims, and then also even some of those beef jerky emails that are also very weird, also coming from women as well. Now, what Jeffrey Epstein and what has become apparent is that he was using his victims, ultimately grooming them to become traffickers. But at a certain point, I think it begs the question, if you are knowingly, as an adult, engaging in potentially the trafficking, maybe even more nefarious acts with children, potentially resulting in bodily harm, etc., at what point do you no longer become a victim and are now a co-conspirator? What's been interesting, though, is that I think that the statute of limitations, remember, the Jeffrey Epstein saga specifically is decades of information that's been compiled. And so there is certain statutes of limitations of which the DOJ might not be able to prosecute. However, if they use a civil rights statute, they can, to my knowledge, bring forward prosecutions. And it has been interesting because some people are saying, well, in order to get other names, remember, there's millions upon millions of files, but in order to name names, is it possible to potentially give immunity to some of these victims, not Ghislaine, but some of the victims, in exchange for testimony and naming names? Remember, we still have not received names from those victims directly. We were promised them. I also understand, though, that there is an active lawsuit with Deutsche Bank. But clearly, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Clearly, there's some very disturbing information. But what's been so horrifying to observe in all of this, Benny, is that you have victims that were then turned to traffickers. You clearly have instances where children were being discussed, and very disturbing emails, as everyone is publicly going into and diving into right now. But also, too, there's this aspect of this that has become political. And so if you're looking to truly receive justice for everyone involved, and then you see that people are taking certain things, knowing that we can see redacted information and then coming out and trying to implicate the president of the United States, obviously that's disturbing. But when you have ABC and multiple outlets, to include Forbes, being forced to report that the president essentially was largely responsible for Epstein's takedown, I think that that pretty much says everything that needs to be said pertaining to the president's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. And so we know that he really helped lead the charge. I just hope that people can stay focused on the issues at hand here. And I really am going to encourage the Department of Justice to consider using the civil rights statute to bring forward prosecutions, and hopefully get justice for these victims.
Yeah, okay, so talk me through that. How would a prosecution work here? Because that is what everybody is asking for. Can we get a single person to suffer a single consequence?
Well, look, right now, again, we have not received names from the DOJ. Granted, we can go in and look at some of the files, but ultimately this entire prosecution would have to come out of what I would say is the Department of Justice. Now, again, there's a statute of limitations for which crimes can be prosecuted, but if they consider using the civil rights statute, and granted, I'm not an attorney, but just based on some of my research, if they consider using that, and they work with some of the victims potentially in immunity, they may be able to bring it forward. But even looking through the numbers of files, I mean, there is this gray area of, okay, well, who exactly knew what? And so if the victims can come forward and provide direct testimony, I haven't had nearly enough time to go through 3 million plus files, but even in just some of the stuff that I have seen, I do think that there is enough information to potentially open up investigations, at least hearing what the victims have to say and see if they can bring forward criminal prosecution using the civil rights statute to do that, as trafficking is covered by that.
So you've uncovered crimes here that you could charge third parties with.
Well, I haven't uncovered crimes. I'm simply going over the information that a lot of other people have been given access to, and I've been able to see names as well as other members of Congress. But remember, some of the names that we're seeing, some of the more egregious emails, are coming from women, and those women are claiming to be victims. To be clear, not all of the victims engaged in this type of behavior, right? There is legitimately disturbing stuff where we know for a fact that, Jeffrey was engaged in pedophilia. That's a fact, even same with Ghislaine. So this idea that Ghislaine's attorney would be asking for a pardon is crazy to me, in exchange for testimony, because she was the worst of the worst. If you read some of even the grand jury, which some of these redactions, the large pages, are actually grand jury testimony, because it involves private information regarding victims, etc. But the point is that, this is a lot bigger than I think a lot of people anticipated. And so this is clearly going to require not just, a member of Congress per se. I think it needs like a task force out of the Department of Justice, solely, focused on civil rights statutes violations, interviewing victims, seeing which victims can come forward. But again, a lot of those really egregious emails, the ones that I needed, that I had stated, those were allegedly coming from victims.
Okay, so what about Les Wexner? Now, Les Wexner was listed as a co-conspirator here. He's the billionaire who gave Jeffrey Epstein kind of the fuel in order to internationalize his trafficking operation. He's in charge of L Brands. This is a brand, obviously, that has a background with abuse. What about that? What about Les Wexner? Should he be charged?
So there's been a subpoena that has been sent to come testify to Congress out of oversight that was passed unanimously, I believe, about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. And so, it appears that he'll be coming in. But again, Congress, and this is kind of where the division of powers come, right? We're not a punitive action arm. So there's only a certain amount of power that we have to be able to essentially enforce justice.
Sure.
Now, that's why I'm recommending that the DOJ consider opening up and basically assigning a task force that can maybe go at this from the civil rights statute perspective and see if there can be something done there. But as you're seeing, Jeffrey Epstein was very well connected. A lot of people, some of the most influential people in the world, whether or not they knew about what he was up to, were connected. And then some that didn't very much so knew what he was up to. And you can see that in some of the emails and correspondence. But ultimately, I think what's going to happen is, you're going to see this being used. You're going to see people that want the truth, that want justice. And then you're going to be seeing people that are trying to use this as a means of smearing the administration or smearing the president. But remember, it was both Democrat and Republican administrations previous to President Trump that had the files and did nothing with this. Multiple attorney generals had the files and did nothing with this. Multiple people had the files within the statute of limitation to include why the heck did the state of Florida not aggressively pursue this? Right. I have questions, you're right? Like, I'm a Florida rep, but again, you can only do what is right and start from what you've been given. And I think that this is way bigger than just any one person. This is going to take a select team to go forward and really, I think, bring justice for everyone involved.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the emails, 10 years old, 11 years old, starting to creep people out a lot. The jerky emails, the obsession with jerky. What was that exactly? You've seen the files. What was that?
I have seen some of them. I was able to look at so the way that it goes in, when you go in, you're basically at a terminal and you can research that. You can actually code in the EFTA numbers, right? So you get the numbers. And so we're having to manually write it down. And then you can't take your notes out with you. They give us a pad of paper. So the notes that you go in with, you can't take out with you, but you can write down certain things on a piece of paper, take that out with you. But specifically for that, I was simply looking to see who the actual heck sent these files, because they are disturbing. And these are the ones that are widely being circulated. And those are, for the most part, coming from women. And so those women being redacted are alleged victims. Granted, we don't have a list of names at the DOJ that who's who, but it was known, and I've talked to some of the victims, not the ones in those emails clearly, but the victims will tell you themselves, and everyone knows this, that Jeffrey Epstein was coercing young girls. He would then have them go recruit. But I also too remember, I think that there's a certain point when you could have a terrible thing happen to you, but then to go a step further, there's some really dark stuff in those emails. And, even going as far as, mocking Jesus. There's a certain level of humanity. And if you don't believe in good and evil and God and the devil, I think by the time you're done going through these files, you will.
Yeah, it's purely demonic. They're mocking a little girl praying to Jesus to save her. And of course, also if you view people as not creations of God, but as things to be tortured or abused, then you clearly have no light in your soul at all. You're clearly someone who's dark.
Exactly. And I think that, as people are kind of going through this and as this is being, kind of exposed, granted, this likely would have never happened if the administration in place wasn't currently there. And I say that because you can look at some of the stuff that was previously tried to be released under JFK, MLK, RFK. And because of the different agencies, to include the FBI that house a lot of these documents, I mean, unless the actual directors choose to work with the president in charge, it's not going to be released. And you saw basically many agencies working together in conjunction with President Trump signing that release order for the files. But again, I mean, there's been so much stuff leading up to this. Remember, I think it was on your show and back in March of what it was last year that we had the whistleblower that said that there was evidence destruction by the Biden administration at the FBI, specifically pertaining to Jeffrey Epstein. So do we even have the complete files? I don't think so. But from the files that we do have and the stuff that we're uncovering, I mean, it's really egregious. I'm not saying that I don't think that people should be directly attacking the victims, because not all victims engaged in this. But remember, Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney is getting paid to represent and advocate for a pedophile trafficker. I don't think that she deserves special treatment. I don't think that she deserves a pardon. And I think for her to actually hold this information in exchange for, special treatment, when she's the one that was the reason why so many of these people were subject to what they were subject to, is really gross. But that's why I think that these discussions need to be had very publicly. And I think that, it is potentially something that the DOJ needs to consider, offer, limited immunities to some of these alleged victims that were engaging in, whatever it was that they were engaged in, for exchange for testimony so that we can bring forward prosecution. But that is something that's way above my pay grade. And I think at the end of the day, I think that limited immunity only goes so far, because if someone engaged in, and I'm not saying that I've seen this, but if you have someone that literally engaged in the direct harm of a child that potentially resulted in bodily injury, whatever it might have been, I don't think that those people deserve to walk for immunity. I think that those people were complicit. But if you have someone that was then coaxed into traffic, I mean, I think that that's something that, again, is case by case basis. Mm-hmm. And so that's why the task force I would recommend should be formed.
So just two quick things. There are a lot of viral mentions about the 11-year-old, 10-year-old, people sending these photos to Jeffrey Epstein. Did you uncover who sent those photos of little children?
I looked directly at the emails that have been widely circulated pertaining to the age 11, and I have it written down on my notes, the permission to kill email, the Snow White, the littlest girl was naughty, etc. And those ones were directly sent by alleged victims, women. They were sent by women.
So the most disturbing and darkest and sickest emails were sent by women to Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, and some of them pertaining to, jerky, whatever that is. Yeah.
And so so just quick follow. What is jerky? Like, what is that exactly?
I think that's the question. I don't know if it's like, and again, like going into specifically just based on what this is, I don't know.
It's a code word.
Context
it has to be a code word. Nobody talks about jerky like this.
Weird. Yeah, it's a code word and it's weird, but either which way.
We have beef jerky in the studio, okay? So, like, Klein and I know, I've never spoken to my team or anything. There's no correspondence to me talking about jerky this obsessively. There's hundreds of emails about jerky.
It's a code word, and some of those emails were sent by women and women that specifically claim to be victims.
So you're saying that these victims are being groomed into
there's
becoming
evidence.
Traffickers themselves.
There's evidence of that. Yes,
okay.
I'm not saying all of the.
So they're not actually victims. They're not actually victims, or they're.
I think that there are some that are actual victims, but I also think that at a certain point, if you, depending on the severity of what you're doing, I think that there's a gray area, and then you become a co-conspirator.
Okay, so then the follow-up. 2 or 3 really quick follow-ups, Congresswoman. I know that you have to go. What was the darkest thing? Perhaps you haven't revealed it yet. What was the darkest thing that you've seen the unredacted files? You were able to go in.
Some of them. I've seen some of them. I had a very quick time. But I think some of the more disturbing stuff is finding out that
anything else you can tell us? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been publicly saying pretty much for the most part what I've seen. I really don't want to look at any of the images or the video files because there's certain things that you just can't unsee.
Yeah.
But I also understand that, I have an obligation as a congressional investigator. And I just think that this is a lot bigger than what people could have ever anticipated. But again, remember that there's also a massive machine that's trying to use this to smear the president. And I will say is that this has completely exonerated him.
Okay, so he's completely exonerated. What about Bill Gates? What about Bill Clinton? What about Les Wexner?
Well, Bill Clinton, the Clintons are going to be coming in. But again, I'm not seeing the emails, at least so far, with them directly listed in some of the more disturbing stuff that I've seen. But again, this is, I think, way bigger than Congress. I think that the DOJ, and I would really recommend that the DOJ do a task force looking into this, because this is going to take legal minds, this is going to take law enforcement, all of which I support, but we just simply don't have the authorities here in Congress. But I do have my team here, and they're giving me the wrap up.
Yes,
so.
That's right. Okay.
Whatever questions you have left, I can answer back.
Here we go. Okay, so you brought the spiritual element. This is the final question. What's your spiritual take on this? You're a Christian. You're a mother. You have a beautiful family. What's your spiritual take on what's actually happening here?
I think this type of stuff exists when people refuse to believe in God. And I think that this type of harm to children specifically is done because there's a spiritual element of how pure children can be. And I think that it's demonic. And I don't think that there's any way that you can chalk it up. But I pray every day, and I prayed before going in to look at the files, and I'm still praying. And I just think that we all need to remember that. But you can't get complicit in this if you say, well, that's it. Like, this is just, we're going to throw our hands up and not do anything. That's part of the spiritual battles. That's an attack. You have to get involved, and you have to make sure that you're always backing and on the right side of justice, and that is standing up for children.
So Jeffrey Epstein was a demon.
I think that he was absolutely a demon. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you see this final question? Do you see any signs of something, like greater occult or greater, network here that would sort of signal like a grander conspiracy here? Because what people are
obviously,
saying, what Alex Jones is saying on our show, this is like he calls it the Rosetta Stone to the occult, is what he says.
Well, I think that Jeffrey Epstein clearly had intelligence ties. I mean, there's no question. But do I think that it was necessarily a U.S. intelligence tie? I don't think that I'm sold on that specifically because of how he was operating in certain foreign countries. But again, this is, I think, way bigger than just, and that's why I think a lot of the internet sleuths have been kicking up a lot of good stuff that even Congress is using to help try to find this stuff. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay, so CIA files next, right, Congresswoman?
We'll see. We'll see. The CIA has said that Jeffrey Epstein was not an asset. So.
Right, sure. There's photos of him with giant bins of CIA evidence behind him. Got it.
I don't speak for the CIA, just telling you what they're telling us.
Sure. Okay. Well, CIA files next, right? That's the next one that we got.
What they got. Those
we
usually don't get bins from nowhere, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's the next one we got to crack. Everyone follow the Congresswoman. Everybody knows Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. She's got 500,000+ subscribers here. God bless you, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are plowing through today, making sure that you know that we will be traveling to Washington, D.C. Tomorrow. We have a number of meetings. Very excited about it. Taking our Patriot Mobile devices with us as ever. Patriot Mobile locks us in and keeps us connected. We have a lot of exciting news to share with you. Last time we told you we were going to go hang out with Kid Rock and produce a halftime show. It turned out great, right? And making sure that we are connected with you and can inform you from the field is what Patriot Mobile does for us. The best premium Christian conservative wireless provider in the world. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny, call 972-PATRIOT and use the promo code Benny for a free month of service. patriotmobile.com/Benny, 972-PATRIOT to make the switch today. Representative Brandon Gill is a rising superstar, I think the youngest member of Congress, but also somebody who regularly and systematically deploys such skill when it comes to questioning these witnesses. Like Jack Smith was the last witness that just got absolutely gutted. But also you have members of the Somali fraudsters. Brandon Gill asking, wait a second, Why do we allow this in our country? Now he has a bill. Brandon Gill introduces bill to set 25-year moratorium on immigration from Somalia. Seems like common sense to me. Let's ask the congressman himself live on the show right now. Congressman, welcome back to the program. I just had to say thank you for asking a question that we have yelled into the internet time and time again, which is, has any politician ever explained why there are so many Somalis in our country? And no one has ever, not in my life, and I'm nearly 40 years old, not in my life, Congressman, has anybody ever, any politician ever sat down and given an account to the American people as to why we would be bringing Somalis to our country and explained it slowly so that we could all understand, why is this happening? And you did. You asked these questions, so we're thankful for you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. That is the core question, is why is this good for America? The purpose of our immigration system, the sole purpose of our immigration system is to benefit American citizens. There's no other reason that we have it. We should be able to choose who comes into the country, and it should be on our terms. And there are certain principles that we follow to ensure that immigration benefits our people, and for too long we haven't been following them. And I think that the mass Somali immigration is the perfect example of that.
So yeah, you asked, like, do Somalis make a community better or not? And then you brought up the obscene amount of welfare, the obscene amount of fraud, the obscene amount of government dependence. I mean, it's a great question here to ask. If you're only coming here and for generations, your family and your lineage just simply uses the welfare state to subside, you're not an immigrant, you're an invader, you're a parasite on our system.
And that was the question that I wanted to ask a witness about a month ago whenever we had our first Somali fraud hearing, which was, does mass Somali immigration benefit the American people?
Thank you.
And the witness, who is a leftist, of course, said, yes, of course they do. They bring all kinds of cultural diversity, blah, blah, blah. So I just asked him, do you know how many Somali immigrants in the United States are on welfare? And we were thinking specifically of Minnesota, because that was the point of this hearing, was Minnesota fraud. It turns out that 82% of Somali immigrants in Minnesota are on welfare, using welfare. And what's most astounding is I asked him, do you know what percentage of Somali immigrants in Minnesota are on welfare even after being in the United States for 10 years? So you could say, okay, they came into the United States, they needed to get on their feet. I don't buy that argument, to be clear, but maybe somebody could say that. Well, 78% of Somali immigrants, again, even after being in the U.S. for 10 years, are on welfare. I mean, that is astounding. In other words, they're not living the American dream. They're not self-sufficient. They're here because you can get free stuff. And that's a problem for the American people, because we're the ones who are paying for this. You know, I mentioned some principles of immigration, and one of them that the United States has in the past adhered to is called what's called a public burden doctrine. So in other words, we say that you cannot immigrate into the United States if you cannot become self-sufficient, if you're not self-sufficient. So you can't come in here and just hop on welfare. And that's something that the vast majority of Americans agree with. You know, we've got our own problems here. The American people have their own economic issues that they need to deal with. We don't need to be subsidizing mass migration of people here who are on welfare, that we pay for their food and their housing and all kinds of other benefits. That makes no sense whatsoever. And again, that's something that most Americans agree with. It's so basic. It's so common sense.
So yeah, it does beg the question, like, who decided to do this after all? If you look at Somalia as a nation, you'll see, of course, a failed state, a tribal state, a Sharia law state, a state with very high coefficients for inbreeding. That's just a matter of fact. It's not racist. It's from the UN. And this, of course, leads to very bad outcomes when it comes to IQ and health. This is just a cult. This is their culture, right? It also leads, of course, to a culture of piracy, theft, and total collapse. Their own government, of course, is a thief of U.S. aid. And so everything from child brides to sectarian violence, why would you bring that into your country if Somalia was a state in America? Would you ever want to visit it? Like, right? Like, you know, I love using that rule. It's like, if you took the country and you broke it off, just the people and the landmass, and you attached it to America, would you ever want to visit? Well, if it was Switzerland, yeah, sure. But Somalia, no, nobody would ever want to visit. So
that's the perfect way to lay this out, I think, because I think that there's this idea that we've had for a long time, which is that whenever somebody comes into the United States, they sort of check their their prejudices at the door, that they immediately become American. And that's what we hope to happen. We hope for immigrants to assimilate into American culture, to adopt our way of life, to adopt our culture, all the things that make America the envy of the world. But whenever you have an enormous amount of people coming into the country, millions from all over the globe, including societies like Somalia, and are coming into the United States and are forming little enclaves, like what you see in Minneapolis, that are almost like parallel societies within America, very little assimilation is actually happening. And you can measure that here. Another question that I asked was, are Somali immigrants in Minnesota learning English? And what we found is that only about half of Somali immigrants in Minnesota, even after being in the United States for 10 years, speak English very well. And I think that's a good proxy for cultural assimilation. If you can't communicate with the country that you live in, with the people that you live in, then you're probably not assimilating very well at all. I think that's something, again, most people would agree with.
I have this article right here. I'd love for you to talk through your proposed legislation for a 25-year moratorium.
Yep. So what I introduced was this bill last week, and it's simple. It's just saying that Somali immigration does not benefit the American people. They're coming in, they're getting on welfare at astoundingly high rates. They're not assimilating, not learning our language. And we've also found, and there have been studies that City Journal has done incredibly well, that crime rates for Somali men in the United States are far higher than incarceration rates for Native American citizens. That's a problem. So I think, again, it goes back to, does Somali immigration benefit the American people? The answer is clearly no. Again, that's not a racial comment. That's not there's nothing bigoted to say that. It's just a simple fact. And we ought to recognize that. We ought to say very clearly that if it's not benefiting the American people, why do we allow it? By almost every measure, it's harming the American people. And I think that a 25-year moratorium on Somali immigration makes perfect sense. If anything, 25 years is too short of a time frame. I think it's a bit of a moderate solution here that we propose. But, I think that that's something that every Republican ought to be able to get on board with.
Yes. So we actually have this article loaded for you. Yes, Somali immigrants commit far more crime than natives, from the City Journal. Yeah, well, we thank you for asking this critical question. It is the only question. If you wish to survive as a country, you can't bring in infinity people who hate you and then create parallel countries inside of your country and create a parasite ecosystem that, of course, we're paying for them, this alternative country that hates us and then defrauds us. And it's like, so common sense. I don't know why more people don't get behind it. What about Ilhan Omar? And she's under a couple of investigations right now. Very curious. It's seemingly the explosion of Somali fraud dollars flowing into fake businesses has corresponded perfectly with Ilhan Omar's net worth. And of course, her net worth comes from a very shady hedge fund. Nobody knows where that money comes from. It's not a real company. It has like a WeWork address in Washington, D.C. They scrubbed their website, and a fake winery, we found out. When we just investigated, just used Google Earth and just looked, like, there's no winery here. There's no phone number. There's no, the winery's fake, and she's saying that it's netting her millions and millions of dollars. What the hell's going on, Congressman?
Well, that's something that the ethics committee is taking a look at now. And I agree with you. It does look like there's something shady happening. Whenever you look at Somali immigration into Minnesota, and I think this is a good example, what Democrat politicians there did is they basically had an unspoken deal with the Somali community. And I think this was the driving factor behind mass migration from Somalia, which is, you're going to come into the United States, you're going to form these little enclaves, and you can defraud taxpayers, you can engage in corrupt activity, and we're going to look the other way. This is what Democrat politicians, sort of the bargain that they made. We're going to look the other way while you defraud taxpayers, and we're not going to do anything. And in exchange, we expect you to vote for us. It's kind of a Faustian bargain, and it's all for political gain. And Ilhan Omar has to know about this, because this is her community. I mean, she lives in these areas. She knows these people. She's known that this stuff has gone on for a long time. In fact, Governor Walz has known about this fraud for a long time. Now, I hope that the Ethics Committee takes this investigation seriously, because I think the American people want to know that their elected representatives are not engaging in any kind of illicit activity or anything that is sort of improper or untoward, or any way for an elected official to gain massive amounts of wealth in a short period of time after becoming elected. And those are answers that we need.
Congressman, I know we're up against a hard out here, but you do serve on the Oversight Committee along with the Judiciary Committee and the DOJ Committee. But the Oversight Committee obviously making an enormous amount of headlines here with the Bill Clinton potential testimony. Will it be on camera? Won't it be? And so on. I mean, I just want to ask you, as as one of the members of Congress who delivers the most consistent viral lines of questioning for the witnesses, and truly exposes so much of the the humiliating fraud behind NPR, Jack Smith, the Somali fraud. What will you be asking Hillary and Bill Clinton?
Well, they're going to be coming in for private depositions February 26th and 27th. These are closed-door depositions, and there's a lot of questions that the committee has and that we have for the Clintons. We know that Bill Clinton has a long history with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein visited him in the White House when he was president over a dozen times. He's flown on Jeffrey Epstein's private jet over 20 times. We have pictures that many of them have been made public of Jeffrey Epstein with Bill Clinton, and some pretty uncomfortable things that most people don't want to see, to put it politely. And I think that we want answers. We want to know, what did you know about Jeffrey Epstein, and when did you know it, and why didn't you do anything about it? You seem to have this long history with him. We know that Ghislaine Maxwell attended the wedding of Chelsea Clinton. We know that he knew pretty well Hillary Clinton. What was going on here, and why didn't you guys do anything about it? And we're still working through exactly how this deposition is going to go, but I think those are the questions the American people want to know.
Yeah, just very quickly, because Bill Clinton is saying it must be public. It has to be public. How dare you? Like, what's going to happen if he doesn't show? What will you make this public, or is there a chance that this will become a public hearing?
Well, if he doesn't show, I think he's going to be held in contempt of Congress. Remember, the only reason that we're having this deposition now is because the Clintons have been evading the Oversight Committee for months. We first started working with the Clintons back in August of last year, and very conveniently, they couldn't find any time on their calendar to come testify before the committee. And we were working in good faith to find a time that would work for both them and for us. At one point, they proposed that we do these depositions on Christmas Day while we are celebrating Christ's birth. Another time, they proposed that Chairman Comer and the ranking member of the Oversight Committee go up to New York to have a private conversation with Bill Clinton that would not include a court reporter, which, by the way, is the whole purpose of a deposition. They said the Republicans can have a note taker and the Democrats can have a note taker, but you will not have any sort of official unbiased transcript of the meeting, which, again, that's the whole purpose of a deposition, is to get you on record, to ask you questions that we can get real answers to. So we said no. The only reason they're coming here is because we were moving contempt of Congress charges that we passed out of committee, and we're about to go to the House floor for a vote, and they would have passed. And then magically the Clinton schedule opened up. So I expect them to show up and give us answers. And they know what the consequences will be if they don't.
We look forward to more. We really hope that there are more people as we learn more about the Epstein saga. Les Wexner was just listed as a co-conspirator. Obviously, Bill Gates has a very, very strange and lurid past. We really hope that we get to see more and hear more, because the American public needs to know that we're not paying taxes to a satanic predator cult. It's like, kind of the basics, like the Somali fraud, very important. Also, the satanic predator cult. Don't want to pay taxes to either of them, Congressman.
I hope the bar isn't that low. We've got a lot of work to do here.
Yes. Please follow the Congressman, Congressman Brandon Gill of Texas, the great Texas 28th District. I'm sorry, am I saying that correctly? 28th. 26th District. My apologies. My apologies. Reading off a monitor that is a little far away. And I just want to say thank you. Congratulations. You're beautiful and growing family. He's got 250,000 subscribers here on X. Make sure that you pour in and follow and give support to the people who are fighting for you. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, Benny.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to jump right over to Congressman Jim Jordan. I'm sorry I've let my questions get away from me here. There's just so much going on. The great congressman, the great chairman from the state of Ohio, Jim Jordan, live now. Such an interesting day. There's so much going on right now. And, I know that you're a massive sports fan. And so I just want to get your take. Did you watch the Bad Bunny or did you watch the Turning Point halftime show with Kid Rock?
To be honest, Benny, I didn't watch either. I watched the first half, and then my wife and I, Polly and I, we clicked over and watched something else for a while, and then we jumped back to the game, I think, about the start of the fourth quarter, and saw that it was pretty much over, and that was it. I did like some of the ads. I like the ones that are kind of apple pie ads. I like the one where the dad was giving the farm to his daughter. It was the Lay's potato chips. I mean, I like those. So, and I like the Kurt Russell one where he kept saying again, like from the movie Miracle. So, but yeah, we didn't watch the halftime show.
It's fine by me. Not just turning it off. It's good enough for me. Just really quickly though, as a sports guy, as like a champion wrestler yourself, as somebody who clearly loves like the universe and the ecosystem of sports, what does it say about the NFL having Bad Bunny perform entirely in Spanish?
I don't know. I mean, the NFL a few years back was doing all kinds of left-wing woke things as well. I just like to focus on the sports, focus on, striving to win, the things you learn from sports, why I love it so well. You learn about discipline, hard work, sacrifice, teamwork, all those things. Let's just focus on the sports and let the athletes compete. It's one of the reasons I like wrestling so well, and I know you do as well, because it's pretty basic. You step on the mat, you shake hands. If you can throw him down more than he can do it to you, you win. And if you get your tail kicked, there's no one to blame but yourself. And it's sort of sort of fits America, I feel like. So, by the way, big match Friday night. Ohio State's at State College, number 1 and number 2. Penn State, number 1. Ohio State, number 2. I think Ohio State's the only team that can give them a go. They put it on your team. They put it on the Hawkeyes last week in Columbus, big time. So Ohio State's tough this year. They're tough every year, but that's a big match on Friday night in State College.
I'm gonna burn up all of our time just talking about wrestling. I'll see you at the national championships in Cleveland.
It's in Cleveland, yeah.
It's gonna be great. Okay, all right. So the national championships, the big arena is set for Bill Clinton, and you're on oversight. Pam Bondi also testifying tomorrow. Members of Congress are able to go in and see unredacted Epstein documents. And so I guess I want you've been at this for a while, Mr. Chairman. So what has been revealed to you in these documents and the release of these documents? What have you found curious?
I think the biggest takeaway is, no matter what the Democrats do, there's never been anything bad about President Trump, which you and I knew all along. Because if there was, you don't think the Garland, Biden, Harris Justice Department would have went after President Trump? I mean, they weaponized the Justice Department against conservatives and against the president. So I think, Ms. Maxwell testified again and took the fifth most of the time, but she said for the second time, at least through her counsel, that President Trump didn't do anything wrong. So sort of what we knew all the way. I think that to me is a big takeaway. And then we'll just see how this all shakes out as we move forward. Frankly, I would like to ask Secretary Clinton about when the whole weaponization effort against the president began, because we all know it started with the dossier, which was paid for by the Clinton campaign. And this dossier was a completely false, ridiculous document. So I don't know if we can get that in. Her lawyers will probably push back. But if we do, in fact, get to this deposition in a few weeks, I would like to go there.
So this is something that I've been wanting to ask. What are you going to ask Hillary Clinton? So you're going to talk about paying for Russian disinformation to smear and undermine President Trump.
That's when it all began. This is why it's so important, because that whole thing, the dossier paid for by the Clinton campaign, through the law firm Perkins Coie, through Fusion GPS, the public relations firm, to a foreigner, Christopher Steele, who wrote this lying garbage document that our FBI under James Comey used to go after the other party's presidential candidate and spy on the campaign. That all happened, and it was based on nothing but just political go after your opponent. That's not supposed to be the way it works in our great country, but it did. And then that leads to Mueller, which leads to impeachment, which leads to, Alvin Bragg, Fonnie Willis, Jack Smith, Radius Holm, all the crazy things that took place. But it began there 10 years ago. So I think that's appropriate, but we'll see if they come. We'll see if we can get into that. But that's some of the things that's on my mind.
So what questions about Epstein would you have for Hillary Clinton?
I'll leave that mostly to my colleagues who've been digging into this. I'll leave that to Chairman Comer. I mean, there's plenty of things you just had on Brandon. By the way, is Brandon Gill a great new member? He's on our committee on judiciary, does an outstanding job, and he talked about the number of times that the President Clinton traveled with Mr. Epstein, the number of times they were together at the White House. I think all those things will be dug into. I'm actually focused, I think, from the judiciary perspective on this other issue. We have plenty of members who are going to focus in on the Epstein issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think just sort of off the top of the dome, like, you claim to be the world's foremost feminist. You claim to be such a champion of women. This is kind of your brand. Yet you knew your husband was doing all of this with Jeffrey Epstein. You knew about Jeffrey Epstein. You obviously knew about Jeffrey Epstein. Here's the photos. I mean, you clearly knew this was happening. So why didn't you say anything? That's something that's like kind of like the obvious, like, why didn't you ever say anything? President Trump was out in 2015 being like, Epstein, he's bad. He's a predator. Bill Clinton's a predator. Prince Andrew's a predator. And and now we'd find out today that Trump was the foremost whistleblower on Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be the same thing that Brandon was just talking about that we've seen with this Somali fraud issue up there is, did the elected officials kind of look the other way because there was political advantage? And the same thing happened here. Did people look the other way with Mr. Epstein, particularly, as you mentioned, Secretary Clinton? Did she look the other way because of the fundraising and everything else that was part of this effort? Well, we'll see. But I think definitely what happened I agree with Brandon and what I've seen with this fraud in Minnesota. It was definitely look the other way, make sure the money keeps flowing, that they're just stuffing in their pockets. This whole Feeding Our Future program, where they were supposed to be providing meals to kids during COVID. The only problem is there were no kids and no meals. It was just stuffing the money in their pockets. And everyone's kind of like, okay, we're just going to not pay attention to this because they're giving campaign contributions to the attorney general up there and they're voting for Democrats.
Of course. So this is one that it might make a little bit of an international scene, but since the Clintons are coming in, why not Prince Andrew? I mean, we have these photos of really creepy stuff that Prince Andrew was doing. I don't know what's going on here exactly. A very young woman who's either unconscious or I don't know. It's just very strange. And if there's somebody who hasn't answered anything on the record about this, it's Prince Andrew. So,
yeah, again, I'll leave that to Chairman Comer, who they may decide to call. They brought in former attorney generals. They've gotten statements from them. They've done depositions of Ghislaine Maxwell, and she took the fifth. And then they got, of course, the ones with the Clintons. We'll see who else may.
Would you be in favor, though, of bringing in?
I leave that I leave that up to the chairman. I've supported Jamie in the entire effort here. We worked closely together last Congress on a number of issues. We have a good working relationship. Judiciary Committee and Oversight Committee tend to be involved in a lot of the same things. There's a little variation there. So I work closely with him, and I'll follow his lead.
Okay. The SAVE Act. I know that we're potentially going up for a vote, and this is the biggest. This is the singularly the biggest and most important piece of legislation, I think, that has captured the attention of the Republican base. Finally, people are really getting into the weeds on this. Where are we going to be on this?
This will pass. I think this passes the House because every member is going to vote for this. They voted for it before, and they vote for it because it's just good common sense. You got to be a citizen. You got to show ID. Shazam. I mean, go figure. And the left is against it. It reminds me of we've talked about this before. Every position the left takes is crazy. I remember when Sarah Huckabee Sanders did the response to the State of the Union a few years ago. She said the divide in America today, normal versus crazy. And it's crazy not to have a border. It's crazy to defund the police. It's crazy to say you want to abolish ICE. It's crazy to say men should compete against women in sports. And it's crazy to say you shouldn't show an ID when you vote. We got to show an ID you got to show an ID to get on a plane. You got to show an ID to do everything else. But voting, where you elect the people who are going to make the laws and determine how our great country, the greatest nation ever works, I mean, that makes no sense. And the country understands it. This is like a 95-5 issue. But you'll see the left, which now controls the Democrat Party, you will see them push the Democrats to vote no. But we have the votes in the House. It'll pass, and then it'll go to the Senate, and we'll see what happens.
What's your message to Thune on this?
Well, I mean, hopefully there's a few Democrats who will actually do the common sense thing. Remember, we've had reports in the past that said, it's dangerous to have mail-in voting and all this stuff, and they were bipartisan. So you would think something this basic, be a citizen, show your ID. Oh, go figure. But they're going to be against it, I think. The Democrats are.
But Thune could do the talking filibuster. You could potentially break it with 51 votes.
Yep, we'll see. I mean, this is an issue, as you say, Benny. I think you're right. That is so critical to the future of our country. Democrats talk about protecting democracy all the time. Well, best way to protect democracy is make sure only citizens can vote, and they demonstrate they're a citizen. Show an ID.
Show an ID. All right. Well, we'll be showing an ID at the national championship, getting in, and hopefully we'll see you there, Congressman.
Yeah,
and look forward to what's going to be a rowdy week in your committees. This is going to be crazy. Pam Bondi, I think, is testifying tomorrow.
Martin,
so yeah,
she's done a great job. She's done a great job.
You have your work cut out for you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for being on.
Everybody
follow Jim Jordan. Millions of followers. Here we go. Let's go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we talked a little bit about how Americans are financing so much fraud, but American financing is the way that you actually get free from the fraud of high interest credit card debt. The 20s and 30s is usury rates. It should be illegal. President Trump just said he wants to cap credit card rates at 10%. Very, very popular. It's also something that I think is immoral, quite frankly. Nonetheless, it traps families in a cycle of debt slavery, and you need to get out of that slavery. If you are one of the millions of Americans who are trapped, you can call right now American Financing at 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219. AmericanFinancing.net/Benny to get out of debt slavery, reconsolidate your debt with rates that are like at the Fed's funds rates, right? And so I think we all kind of none of us really like it, but like we all generally agree this is a lot fairer. So make the call today, 888-528-1219. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's just go ahead and jump on back into Jeffrey Epstein. And because we obviously had to do like a pretty blazing series of interviews there where we asked more about it. Jim Jordan's lack of interest, I think, is curious to me about all of this. I think that Republicans are in a tough spot, which is why we wanted to cover today. And Republicans are in a tough spot because this has been completely politically weaponized. As we have shown you today, the Justice Department has released the files that say, listen, Trump was not only a whistleblower on Jeffrey Epstein, he was probably an FBI informant on Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump was the guy who threw him out of his club. And President Trump, please put up the document. President Trump is the guy who called in to the police chief and said, thank God you got him. This guy is a scumbag. We all know he's a scumbag. Everyone knows it. Remember Cindy McCain? Cindy McCain, we all knew what he was doing, but we didn't have any way to go after him. Well, here's Donald Trump going after him in 2006 when he was a TV host, when he was a reality television star. And the victim's lawyer straight up says that President Trump is the only guy that he was able to get on the phone to help him. I'm just going to simply we're just exonerating Trump in this. Now, this is a separate issue, totally and wholly separate issue from did the DOJ do a good job here? And I don't think they did. And I think that there's so much that is now concurrently coming out. Everything from like switching Jeffrey Epstein's body to, did they use a body double? Now that's all but been confirmed. Did the government freaking kill him? Do we have that email? I mean, geez. We have emails of a press release dated the day before Jeffrey Epstein was killed in his cell. I say killed in his cell because, not because I think he committed suicide, but because I think that Jeffrey Epstein, I don't know, like, is he actually dead? I just don't know anymore. I don't know anymore, man. But we have this press release of the DOJ. I want to show it, guys, so we've got to just grab it and put it up, please. This press release, the DOJ, that's dated a day before Jeffrey Epstein died, Friday, August 9th. Jeffrey Epstein found unconscious and unresponsive in his cell on August the 10th, 6 a.m. So why? Why, how could you possibly have this document that describes, by the way, the exact style of death of Jeffrey Epstein? He was found unresponsive in his cell how could this be pre-written? The government had nothing to do with it. So like there's separate issues. Like it's a wholly separate issue of, is there a nefarious like crack team that was allowed to kill Jeffrey Epstein in a cell? I mean, Matt Gaetz told us he thinks that an Israeli, like a foreign government, was allowed by our government to come in and kill Jeffrey Epstein inside of his prison cell. That's what, and then Bill Barr covered it all up. That's what Matt Gaetz tells us. I don't know. But it's very mysterious. The jerky stuff, like there's this obsession with beef jerky in the emails. People are saying that it's potentially child meat, or that it's obviously slang for something. Anna Polina Luna just confirmed that. So, again, I want to just like separate these two things, because they are two distinct things. Did Donald Trump engage in predatory, pedophilic activity with Jeffrey Epstein on his islands and his planes, and that's why he's covering it up? No. The answer to that is no. And until you show me any other documentation, all I have is like, here's, for instance, the victim's lawyer. Let's go.
The only thing that I can say about President Trump is that he is the only person who, in 2009, when I served a lot of subpoenas on a lot of people, or at least gave notice to some pretty connected people that I wanted to talk to them, he is the only person who picked up the phone and said, let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know, and was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever, but had good.
I mean, like somebody paying off the lawyer of the victims now to like say this good about Trump, and that clip's from like, I think 2012. So Trump wasn't president. He wasn't running for office. That's just like a man on the street interview, and the guy's just like spitting. Yeah, dude. And then the same thing that the article said. So you don't need to hear me go over this again and again. This isn't new information to the Benny Show. This is new information to our viewers. What is new information is right here. So President Trump is exonerated from the horrible trafficking, criminal, pedophilic, predator activity. He's exonerated. A totally separate issue is, how is the DOJ handling this? And the DOJ is handling it poorly. It's not good. I don't like it. I'm not going to defend it. To say that there was nothing there, and he was trafficked to, that he was trafficking people, children, to no one. Dude, here we go. This was released today, unredacted today. Co-conspirators. You can see the co-conspirator. Well, some of it is still redacted. This is the Jeffrey Epstein unclassified law enforcement FBI investigation into his ring of conspirators, people who are working with him in order to traffic women and children. So you have Leslie Groff here. Intelligence sources, isn't that interesting? They're using their financials. You obviously know Ghislaine Maxwell. Here's a co-conspirator that has been hidden. Jean-Luc Brunel. And then there's Les Wexner. This is why we're talking about Leslie Wexner. They list him as a co-conspirator. Not to get too far into it, but Mike Benz straight up tells us that Les Wexner is the architect of all of this. That he signed power of attorney over to Jeffrey Epstein. He's a billionaire. He's runs L Brands. They own like Abercrombie and Finch and a bunch of other brands. Very powerful company. And that Les Wexner effectively gave Jeffrey Epstein his first $1 billion, funded so many of his properties, funded so much of his lifestyle, let him use his private airport in Ohio to do dirty deals with the CIA for trafficking and drug trafficking and gun running. It's crazy. This dude was behind so much of it. And he just like bought a house from the Obamas. You know this? It's wild. So it seems like he's still actively paying people off. Very interesting. Can you search that article? I know it's like an older article. Not older, I mean like from like a few weeks ago, a few months ago. But yeah, Les Wexner has like ties in with the Obamas and with purchasing of their houses. Les Wexner is needs to answer some questions. needs to answer a few questions here. There you go. Jeffrey Epstein linked billionaire pays $37 million for a former Obama rental home on Martha's Vineyard. There's ties into everything, man. The Obamas, we want to like go in hard on the connection to Jeffrey Epstein and the Obamas. It's something that we need to develop here, because everyone from Larry Summers to Catherine Rumler, like Obama's entire inner orbit was obsessed with Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, we know about the Podestas, Hillary Clinton's emails. We know how deep and evil the Podestas were. So many of those emails about hot dogs and pizzas being delivered to the White House. You have John Legend and Chrissy Teigen talking about like the creepiest, the craziest place they've ever had sex. And they were like, what about that Obama thing? And John Legend's like, shut up, honey. It's weird. Like if you actually like pull the threads, it's very weird. It's very strange, and it needs to be developed. We need to like start asking more questions about Obama's tie-in to this universe. Obama's very, very creepy personal life obviously aligns perfectly. And of course, you didn't hear anything about Jeffrey Epstein during the Obama years. It's the last thing I wanted to talk through with you all. I wanted to work through this incredible thread about what actually happened over the last few years in the timeline of Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and who did what when it came to Jeffrey Epstein and his network. I thought this is really well done from War Clandestine. The only people who believe Trump is implicated are the people who don't know anything about Trump or Jeffrey Epstein. In 2005, Trump bans Epstein from all properties for hitting on an underage girl. In 2006, Epstein is arrested in Florida after Trump helped victims go after Epstein, and we now have that proven. 2008, Epstein convicted on minimal charges, an 18-month sentence from the Bush-appointed judge, and let off the hook by the Clinton-allied FBI. Oof. It truly was Bush and Clinton that allowed Jeffrey Epstein to keep operating. He should have been in jail for the rest of his life. We should have never, ever heard the name Jeffrey Epstein ever again. 2008 should have been the end of Jeffrey Epstein. He should have had life in prison for his crimes because they had him dead to rights for underage prostitution and pedophilia. But they didn't do anything. They gave him a slap on the wrist. Nobody understands why. He belongs to Intel. That's where that all comes from, right? Obama and the Democrats did absolutely nothing about Jeffrey Epstein from 2008 to 2016. These are the Obama years. The media didn't touch it. It was a conspiracy theory. You weren't allowed to talk about it. 2017, less than 3 weeks after inauguration, Trump signs an executive order, 13773, targeting transnational criminal organizations to prevent human trafficking. It was one of the first things Trump did as president of the United States. Trump targeted not just Epstein's operation, but others like it around the world. In 2019, Trump DOJ arrests Epstein and seizes his island, throws him in jail for crimes against children. And in 2020, Trump's DOJ arrests Maxwell and throws her in jail for crimes against children. Those charges actually stuck, and Ghislaine Maxwell will be very, very old after serving out her 20-year sentence. I think she'll be in her 80s. 2021 to 2024, Democrats under Biden did nothing. Didn't say a word about Jeffrey Epstein. Nothing. So anybody spreading the lie that Trump is implicated in the crimes simply has no idea what they are talking about. Trump used the full force of the U.S. government to take Epstein out, shut down his operation, seize his island, and threw his ass in jail. Trump's been after Epstein for 20 years. After Trump found out who the monster was, Trump knew what he had to do. And here is the executive order. Federal law, enforcing federal law with respect to transnational criminal organizations and international trafficking, which is exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, among other things. So, cry more lib, shut up, sit down, you know nothing, and, you know, I'm sick of entertaining this idea that Donald Trump somehow has some, like, massive culpability here. I'm not going to entertain it. So we'll see this. We'll see what happens next. They are letting members of Congress dive into these files. Lauren Boebert, there's a clip of Lauren Boebert after viewing the files unredacted. People are saying, I've never seen her like this. Let's watch.
Congresswoman, are you among the members who got to see the unredacted files today?
Yes, I saw some of them, not all of them, obviously. I'll be going back tomorrow to see more.
Any reaction on what you've seen so far?
I think that there's folks who are definitely implicated and co-conspirators, And, I don't think everyone there that was talking about underage girls being trafficked are victims.
Got it. And do you support any clemency for Ghislaine Maxwell? She was saying that
I do not.
Okay.
I think Ghislaine Maxwell should get more time, and she should definitely be in a harsher prison than what she's in. It's absolutely disgusting.
Got it. Thank you, Congresswoman.
Brutal from Boebert, ladies and gentlemen. I am, again, not going to entertain any further commentary on how President Trump is somehow implicated in any of this. If there is anyone who is the actual hero of the story, and I'm not sure there really is one, to be quite honest with you. It's so dark and twisted, but it is President Trump. It's just a absolute and total matter of fact now. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, a longtime partner of the program, Advantage Gold. It is a topsy-turvy environment, ups and downs. Advantage Gold is where it's happening. I'm telling you, like precious metals, every market's going to have their ups and downs, but we've been talking about gold for a long time. Advantage Gold is a smart way to get in on the new all-time highs that Americans are finally waking up. Precious metals are a great store of wealth, and this is what's happening right now. You could switch your 401k or IRA into a retirement account. You have a choice to back it with gold. Take control of what's yours. Advantage Gold, one of America's #1 rated precious metal companies. Text Advantage Gold, Benny, to 85545 right now. Text BENNY to 85545, and you'll instantly get your free gold investment kit. Don't wait while the rally keeps breaking records. Benny to 85545 right now. Find out how you can profit and protect your savings. All right. It's going to be interesting. Just one final little note on us winning the culture wars. One, Kid Rock's song is Till You Can't is #1, in spite of the fact that Bad Bunny got billions of dollars of promotion from companies that are worth trillions, like the NFL and Apple. Kid Rock's #1 song. And not just Kid Rock. There were 4 or 5 different artists that performed at the Turning Point Super Bowl halftime show that also made it into the top 10 or 20 songs. Ball with the Ball from Kid Rock. First time that's trended in a very long time. That song is, I think, number 15 on the charts right now. And so this is total and complete culture war dominance. This is us voting with our wallets. These are numbers you cannot rig. The NFL is in panic right now because early snap numbers show that the halftime show collapsed by nearly 40% in viewership, that half of the viewers of the Super Bowl turned off the halftime show. And now Congress is calling for an inquiry into Bad Bunny's indecent Super Bowl show. Pure smut. Representative Ogles and Randy Fine are both saying that because of the lyrics that Bad Bunny was able to get away with, because he is because he was speaking in Spanish, no one could understand him, that you broke FCC law by broadcasting enormous amounts of profanity and sexually explicit material, and obviously a sexually explicit show. So here we go. I hope that this happens. I'm a massive fan of this. Sorry, something just very strange happened with the script, ALX, and I'm just gonna have to zoom down. Nonetheless, we don't have to read the tweet. We know this FCC law forward and backward. You're not allowed to curse. You're not allowed to be sexually explicit on public airwaves. This is exactly what they were using, and so this is why they should totally investigate this. Like, why not? Why not? Let's have some fun, right? Same thing with Jimmy Kimmel. Plenty of fun on this program, ladies and gentlemen, and always capped off by our verse of the day. It's rock and roll from Romans. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you count it all joy when you are suffering. That is God speaking into your life, making you stronger. Just like when you work out, just like when you train, just like when you go on a jog, Like, this is God giving you the type of endurance that life is built on. Nobody wants to live a life of zero consequence and of zero value. And the only way that you actually achieve anything is through struggle. God knows this. He challenges us. And this, again, is where your character comes from. March with us on to victory. And you know what? In the end, we win. It's the best. We've been doing a lot of winning lately. We're going to keep winning. You're going to get sick of winning. It's your boy Benny. See ya.
Truth gon' be faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.